I worked at Wegmans today from 2:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., which meant that I closed today. In the produce department. For which essentially I just had to help the coworker who closed with me today to put some product placed at on front displays at the very front of the produce department, pretty much the very front. Place them into black plastic collapsible boxes I put on my cart. Shortly after I took my 15-minute break, my first and only for today's shift around 6:30 p.m. was when I took that first and only 15-minute break. During which I had two leftover Texas Hots with a Poland Springs branded plastic bottle of water. My mom packed that lunch for me while I was at her place throughout the morning hours and the early to mid-afternoon hours. I had the 2 Texas Hots I had during my 15-minute break cold, and those 2 Texas Hots were perfectly fine that way. It was partially because of that I had those 2 Texas Hots cold, and partially to ensure I didn't go over the 15 minutes. In the case of closing, what I helped the coworker who closed with me today put into the black plastic collapsible boxes, I put up, in this case, 4 in total, 2 on the top level of my cart and 2 on the bottom level of my cart. Though we only ended up using 3 of those boxes, as we first pulled some green peppers, then some red peppers. In this case, they were bell peppers. Then we pulled some bunches of asparagus, each separate bunch being banded together. Then we pulled some broccoli from the front displays of the produce department. We didn't shrink what we pulled at that time. Me and the coworker who closed with me today instead we put that product we put my cart into the cooler section of the part of the employees only warehouse for those who work in the produce department. While I brought out on another cart black meshy tarps and put those tarps over a majority of the hard item section of the produce department, which I restocked during my shift today. along with the mushrooms section, the bulk wall during a couple of relatively brief periods. And there was also a point in which I briefly restocked a few boxes of pineapples, each one with 6 pineapples, restocking those pineapples onto the tropical section of the produce department. Though surprisingly, I don't recall restocking the banana section at any point, as another coworker, male and different from the one that closed with me today, restocked the banana section instead. I recall most often restocking the hard item section of the produce department throughout my shift, but I recall kind of walking all over the produce department, looking for merchandise that could be restocked. As today was a pretty slow day, especially since my shift today took place during the afternoon evening hours, which I feel tends to be a pretty slow period for supermarkets historically. I took my first and only 15-minute break today earlier than I would usually, which in this case would have been at 7:30 p.m. I instead took my 15-minute break at 6:30 p.m. as the coworker who closed with me today requested that I do so I could help him close the produce department. By 7:30 p.m., there was nothing to restock. At the produce department, even the banana section had been double stacked, which is when you fill the shelves of the roughly halfway inclined banana section with bananas and then put bananas on top of the bananas in between the shelves. so that you don't leave a partially full and open banana box on the banana runner. Is historically why that's done. Though in this case it was probably done to ensure that the banana section could be left alone after the produce department closed until the supermarket itself closed for the day. While at my mom's place, around 11:30 in the morning, I had a cup of plain coffee with some scrambled eggs, both of which my mom prepared for me. And afterward, I managed to finish editing the June 5 My Dinner video early enough that I had time to render that video project file using Camtasia 2019, which is the program I used to edit the June 5 My Dinner video. As soon as the rendering finished, I packed my laptop, the charger for my laptop, my headphones, my computer mouse, and unusually, my phone charger into my laptop case so that everything would be ready when my dad picked me up after my shift at Wegmans and we went over to my mom's place to get my stuff and bring it over to my dad's place. And that ended up being the case. I got to my dad's place around 9 p.m. My dad picked me up roughly 25 minutes after my shift, as initially he thought my mom would pick me up from Wegmans and that my shift would end at 1:30 p.m. and I failed to update him otherwise, assuming he already knew that he would pick me up from Wegmans today at 8 p.m. as my mom brought me to Wegmans today, and usually if my mom brings me to Wegmans, my dad will pick me up and vice versa. That's how it is more often than not. And I had gotten used to that. After a handful of minutes, I called my mom, who then called my dad. I called my mom after I called my dad twice, and he failed to answer those calls. Thankfully, everything ended up being fine. I had that big calzone piece and those shrimp chips, as it was some of what a little food there is currently at my dad's place. It was assumed initially that I would stay at my mom's place, but as of now, everything is fine. We just have to, at some point soon, go to the local Wegmans of my dad's area for some groceries. When me and my dad stopped at my mom's place to pick up my stuff to bring it over to his place, I brought over the 2 remaining Texas Hots, intending those for my dad, and 2, I believe technically they're energy drinks, though I think they're more caffeine drinks. They're in aluminum cans. I brought those over, along with a Wegmans reusable bag of some clothes, all along with my laptop case, and put it all in my dad's car. We were initially going to go to a local Burger King, most likely, until I told my dad about the paper bag with the 2 leftover Texas Hots. Though I didn't end up having those 2 Texas Hots, as I brought them over for my dad. I brought this over to Wegmans from my mom's place when my mom took me to the Wegmans I work at. And I filled this with cooler water twice during my shift. Once near the start of it, and once near the end of it, to have water to bring to my dad's place ultimately. As I sipped at all of the cooler water I filled this up with, when I filled it up the first time during my shift, I had this reusable water bottle in the cup holder depression at the top right corner of the upper level of my designated cart for the shift I had at Wegmans today. I recall naturally waking up today around 11:15 in the morning after falling asleep around 4:45 in the morning.